Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's panel discussion, The New Rules of Growth, How CMOs are Rewriting Their Marketing Playbooks. I'm Kat Warboys. I'm not a CMO, unfortunately for me. I'm the APAC Marketing Director here at HubSpot, and I have an absolute pleasure today of hosting today's conversation. And if anything like me, you are experiencing those marketing rules that you once knew and loved and had really come to rely on aren't holding true in today's environment anymore, then you are definitely in the right room today. This theme won't be new to you if you attended Jonathan Hunt's session earlier today, where he talked about the challenges with some of the channels and the tactics that have been very instrumental in our growth, in our business growth for the last decade. Again, not quite performing like they used to. If you throw into that, most of us are likely working with leaner budgets, leaner teams, and adding to all of that, AI changing fundamentally how we operate and how we execute. It is feeling like a lot. But there's also a lot of opportunity here, and I hope that is what you leave today feeling a sense of. I hope today's conversation will be then a very nice extension to Jonathan's session on this topic, and we are going to hear very shortly from some of the best in their industries on how a lot of these changes that we've been discussing throughout Grow today are impacting these leaders day to day and how they are responding to that. And we have with us today, in my opinion, some of the best in the industry. And so please join me in welcoming to the Grow stage this afternoon, Suzanne Coghill, CMO of Tourism Australia, and Suzanne Ronkovist-Amadi, VP of HubSpot's Marketing. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Love to be here.
Glad to have you here. We've been wanting you on the stage with us at HubSpot for some time, so delighted. And luckily for me, I know you only go by the name Susan.
Susan, not Sue. That's me, Susan.
Perfect. And Suzanne, it'd be so weird if I called you Suzanne. Susie is my boss, everybody, so lots of laughs and smiles for me today, please. Hopefully I won't be tripping over names too much. But Susie, I knew it already. Susie, you have traveled an extra long way to be here today, so we're very grateful.
It's not that far, okay?
It's not that far?
As somebody who has to market to the world, get people to come to Australia, it's a really easy journey, right?
Right, it's super easy.
Thank you.
It only took me like 2 days.
No. You caught up on some sleep.
Yeah, I did. I had 10 hours of sleep on the flight over, and it's true. So I haven't felt jet lag at all.
Great. Well, you get some extra bonus points for traveling not so far. So we'll start with you, if you don't mind. Give us a little bit of a sneak peek behind your role at HubSpot, what that entails, and if you don't mind sharing with us, how did you get into marketing?
Great questions. So my role at HubSpot is that I run our regional marketing or our global playbooks. It means that I have teams across the world to help us grow our business globally. And I started in marketing, and this will reveal my age, but in the 90s.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God, because I was going to say the same thing.
Last year. No, jokes aside. I started in marketing in the 90s, and my idea was to work in a really cool, like, New York advertising agency, but here I am, looking at different growth models for HubSpot globally, so that is super exciting too.
Amazing. Same question to you. How'd you get into marketing? Give us a little bit peek behind the scenes.
How did I get the best job in Australia?
You've got an incredible
best job in the world,
job.
in fact.
You must get that all the time.
I do. It's a pretty good job. It's a pretty good job selling the country that I have come to call my home to the world, building a brand from Australia to the world, working in 16 markets around the world. It's pretty super exciting, pretty special. I too started my career in the 90s. Thank you for breaking that ice. I was going to make a joke that it's probably before many of you in the room were born. I don't know if that's right or not, but I started in advertising agency land in Los Angeles. I humble brag here, I started working, one of my early jobs was as a junior burger at Chiat Day, working on Apple. So literally working on the Think Different campaign, working on the launch of the iMac, the iBook, the Cube, for anybody who remembers. And I dropped that not just because it's like an iconic marketing moment, but I say that also though because it was, sort of one of our first tech brands that really understood the importance of building a brand, great storytelling, and not just talking about speeds and feeds, So for me, that was a really formative sort of part of my career. From there, I did a 4-year stint in Singapore, also working in advertising agencies in a regional role, which was amazing. Talk about being thrown in the deep end, learning about other cultures, other ways of working. Before I came to Australia, also in advertising agencies before jumping client side, and I've been lucky enough to work at iconic Australian brands like Westpac, Qantas, News Corp, and then found my spiritual home at Tourism Australia.
Love that. So selling destinations, selling software, definitely some different perspectives here today, which I think is what we need to hear in today's environment. So very excited to have you both with us. We're going to go with each question, I think, today, layer by layer, getting a bit deeper and deeper. So we'll start nice and high level, set the scene for us. Tell us about your teams. And Susan, maybe you can kick us off here. Would love to know, what are the objectives of your team? How are they goaled? And really curious, has that changed at all in the 12 months, or do you see it changing in the next interim?
Yeah, so we at Tourism Australia, we fly the flag for Australia, right? So we are all about selling Australia as a destination. Nobody in market will do that job for us. Yes, we have airline partners. Yes, we have travel agent partners, but they all work with a multitude of destinations. It is really on us to help our customers around the world choose Australia first before any other destination. So we are unapologetically top of funnel. So we are all about creating an audience, building desire in what we call our high yielding travelers in each of our markets. Now that might sound like all we do is sort of fluffy brand stuff or maybe social media things. That's not true. We really look at brand marketing as sort of the yin and yang with partnership marketing. We do brand marketing because it creates an audience, because it creates a pool of people who are already primed to want to choose Australia when it comes, when they go into that phase of wanting to actually book a holiday. So our measures are really around, and we have long-term goals around arrivals and around expenditure. So are we attracting the right type of people who are coming down, spending more money, staying longer, going further, investing in experiences. But as we kind of work our way down, I guess, our metrics sort of pyramid, we really do focus in on consideration, our brand health metrics, making sure that we're driving fashionability such that we're creating demand generation as well. You may not think about travel as being sort of fashion-led, but destinations come in and out of fashion a lot. I mean, if you think back over the last couple of years, your social media feeds were probably full of people either in Greece or Puglia during the Northern Hemisphere summer. And it feels like all of a sudden everybody goes to one particular destination.
I think it's Japan right now. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I just came back from a work trip to Japan, and the number of Australians going to Japan is insane. Everybody seems to be in Japan. Can I ask how many people have been to Japan in the last few years? I mean, come on, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So yes, so that's we focus on the upper funnel, but we do it because it helps us create that audience such that we're setting up our partners for conversion. And we do work with our partners in that conversion space as well. Again, we our travel agents and our airlines can work. They already do work with a multitude of destinations, so we want to be partner of choice for them. So we want to make sure that we are delivering them the audience, but then also working on data-led, insightful marketing campaigns as well to capture the demand that we create.
Yeah, it's a very intricate network, the travel and tourism industry.
And again, I think we often think, oh, we just go on a holiday, it's no big deal. It's actually quite a complex ecosystem.
Yes.
Whether you think about what influences people to choose a destination, as I was saying before, if you think about your path to purchase and how you dip in and dip out of kind of active planning, passive planning, consideration into booking. Yep. And that's all, I think, really a wonderful part of planning your travel, because a lot of that is anticipation. I think in the past we often thought we've got to simplify things and we've got to shorten the customer journey to booking their holiday. And look, there are things that you can do certainly to reduce friction, but I think that there's also, we have to understand what are those things that people are doing that they enjoy in the travel planning process that is, again, just kind of a part of that anticipation, I suppose, and building excitement for the holiday. But one thing I do try and focus on with my team, and I have a couple of them in the room today. Thank you for supporting me, guys. But we talk a lot about focusing on the basics as well. There is so much that we could be doing. I mean, again, when you're active in 16 markets, when you're talking to business events travelers, leisure travelers, working holiday makers, etc., and when you've got a really passionate team within our organization like we do, or within our broader industry, we're never short of really great ideas and things we can do. For us, it's about going, actually, how do we lay the strongest foundation? How do we do brilliant basics such that we get the biggest bang for every single taxpayer dollar that we spend, so we can drive better results for our tourism industry. So for me, I guess it's a little bit, I think of my job as kind of part CMO, but kind of part simplifier as well, and holding people accountable for making sure that we're getting the basics right before we run and layer in complexity in our marketing.
Yeah, sure. I see a lot of similarities with HubSpot. I don't know about you, Susie. It's not tourism, but we have upmarket buyers, downmarket buyers. We have destinations, offices all over the world, buyers all over the world. We serve marketers, sales, and success personas. Like, it gets complex, and I think that having a set of choices and being really focused is so important. I see that. But Susie, tell us a little bit about HubSpot. Tell us about your team. My team.
First, I have to ask though, like, Sweden, how high up on the fashion list are we in terms of like the travel? Okay,
not terribly.
We're not top 10. We're not top 10.
Well, but Swedes are good travelers, obviously.
We are,
but
right?
In terms
and
of,
I'm here.
Yeah, you're here, exactly. So maybe you can go home and you can be an influencer for us. You get more Swedes to come down. Yeah,
I will definitely. I will for sure come back as well. I we oversee the whole funnel end to end as marketers for HubSpot. And one of the core things that we sort of changed this year is to make sure that we can, with our motions that we run in market, look at impact on the bottom line. What is the revenue we help generate as marketers? And so from a brand perspective for us, what that means top funnel is that we are, as a global organization, we are dependent on really strong infrastructures and foundations that we can activate in market. And one critical thing that actually changed the past 12 months for us is that we pushed really hard to make sure that we can look at our brand initiatives in markets, because we've traditionally not really invested in out of home, as an example. We've been really focused on building valuable content before we extract any return back, so to speak. So like adding value before we extract value. But with that, we've implemented new ways of looking at impact. So for all our brand investments, even the out of home or like the more traditional kind of brand spend, we look at how we contribute to revenue. So what we are held accountable for as regional and global marketers are really the net new opportunities we help our fantastic sales organization create, but also the revenue that they close. So we oversee the whole end-to-end buyer's journey, but we do not in market own necessarily every conversion point. And we are also very dependent on our partners in sales to help us grow our business and help monetize on the demand volumes we create.
Are you using econometric modeling so that you can track and I guess put a value on those things that are a little less obviously trackable, so things like outdoor, etc. So that's
we do.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to not do like analysis paralysis. Yeah. Especially when it comes to brand. Yeah. And like for an organization to invest in brand, you have to be brave, because you're not going to be able to track every single dollar as a return of your investment, but we really want to make sure we at least have an hypothesis of how much we can grow based on the investments we make, and we try to correlate that really strict. Is it always comfortable to work with brand investments? No. But do we think it's helpful? Yes. And I think especially in the new world where we live, like, it's going to be more and more difficult to track investments.
Yeah, it's
in general. I think in marketing in general, like, we have to accept the fact that not every single dollar
100%.
we're going to be able to like give us an exact return. And one of the things that I find most frustrating is when you have someone come in and say, what's your confidence level in this investment? And how much do you think?
100% is always the answer.
Yes, 100%. I'll give you the return, no worries. Yeah.
I guess you kind of have to play the long game though, don't you? And I think, it also happens in travel and tourism. I mean, I know it sounds like all we do is lots of brand stuff, and certainly in Australia, we're known for our big sexy brand campaigns, and that we'll work with a Chris Hemsworth and a Kylie Minogue, etc. And that is all wonderful and fun and amazing to do. But there's also a school of thought that's, well, we should be focusing lower funnel. We should be converting, and we just need better deals, and you need the airline things. And that's all well and true. But I remember we had James Herman, sort of marketing expert out of New Zealand, come in and talk at one of our big conferences, and he just did a really great exercise in the room, and he said, okay, put your hand up if you're going to buy a phone in the next 2 weeks, and a sprinkling of hands go up in a room of 700 or whatever it was, and he's like, now tell me who's going to buy a phone in the next 2 years, and everybody's hands put up, of course, and that it's that whole 95-5 rule, and you go, when you're looking to when you're talking to those few people who are looking to buy in the next 2 weeks or whatever it is, it's always going to be the smaller amount. Your brand marketing is going to speak to the entire room and prime them for when they're ready in the next 2 years or so. But you've got to have both of those things working in concert.
Absolutely. It's not one or the other.
Yeah. It's I think for a long time it's been this or that, and now they're actually, we can see how much more complementary they are, for sure.
So much.
And we had Jonathan Hunt's session earlier. Ellie from Tracksuit was on stage, and I think she put it really, really well.
The James Herman company?
Yes, exactly. I was like, I know exactly who you're talking about. Fantastic brand, but she just said it in a very simple way that is obvious, but I think a really nice way to round it up, which is like, okay, yes, your performance marketing will be an indication of how well you do today and tomorrow. Your brand marketing will be an indication of how well you do next year. Depending on your sales cycle.
Yeah, future demand.
Exactly.
That's how James frames it.
Exactly.
It's good language for dealing with the C-suite and boards. It's not, brands sometimes can have a little bit of a stigma, like it's, we're going to throw, $20 million at a big, expensive production or something. But actually, it's about talking to a larger audience over time, such that you're building future demand.
Yeah, and I feel like we're having to explain it less and less today. Thank goodness. I
think so. I tell you what, though,
this question.
You know what? Frequency and repetition. I can't stress that enough for all marketers. Frequency and repetition. Whether it's making sure that your stakeholders understand your strategy, your creative approach, how marketing works, how advertising works. You'd be surprised. How little non-marketers understand that.
I'm not surprised.
But it's the interesting thing is also when we think about measuring brand activities, it is very hard to impact brand awareness from one investment or one big thing and try out and see if it has a return on your aided awareness or unaided awareness. In fact, it's almost impossible. You need to have that continuity. One of the things that we're playing with and testing out is looking at listening into, for example, gong calls to see how conversations evolve for our reps. Do they have to repeat, this is HubSpot and here's what we do?
H-U-B, S-P-O-T.
Yeah, spell it. Or even when I walked up today, here someone said, are you attending HubSpot? Where's the HubSpot? But how are we hearing things being talked about when you're having conversations with a prospect or even at in social, etc., doing those kind of listening tours, etc. That really works, and it helps also prove, if we hear less about that in the gong calls, as an example, we know we're making progress in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. The gong calls provide so much contextual data that we've been missing.
Exactly.
Absolutely love it. Susan, you have touched on this relationship you have with your partners. It's clearly a very critical partnership and ecosystem that you work within. Curious if you're hearing how things are changing for them at the moment, if at all, and what do they look for Tourism Australia for increasingly?
Yeah, the travel industry has had a bumpy road for the last few years. As everybody would know, right? It was, probably single most impacted industry from COVID. And there's no doubt that we're still struggling to recover. There's capacity constraints in some parts of the industry, capacity constraints with the airlines as well. By the way, what's going on around the world also impacts aircraft availability. Who would think that wars happening in Eastern Europe or the Middle East, but planes have to fly different routes, which means, they're flying longer time, which means they can't get on other routes. I mean, all of the things that affect travel and tourism, there's shifting booking behaviors. We have markets like Japan, which is very traditionally a travel agent market for many years. They are slowly starting to book online more directly, increased cost of doing business, etc. So there's no doubt that, their jobs are tougher, the ask is bigger. And so when I say, the best thing that we can do for them, the most important thing that we can do for them is create a bigger audience and create that desire to come to Australia. But we also, as I said before, we do work with them on that conversion space as well. So how can we bring our smarts to them? Again, how do we bring them our data? How do we use our ecosystems to help people make start their booking journey, etc. So it's just important that we make sure that we're thinking about how what we do at the top of funnel really does tie through to the bottom of the funnel. And I say that acknowledging a bit of complexity, because again, as a tourism body, we don't own that whole end-to-end customer journey the way that you guys do. So for us, whether it is our partners, again, the airline partners or travel agents, or we also think about our onshore tourism operators as our partners as well, who deliver that customer experience. It's important that we're sharing information, we're sharing data, and that we're, I guess, really clear on on going on this journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking it a layer deeper to the fun stuff for some of us marketers, the playbooks. Susie, maybe you can kick us off. Would love to hear, and I'll act surprised, like I don't know the answer, working in your team. What's something that you think has been critical that we've changed about our playbook in the recent, 12 months, 6 months?
Well, obviously, we heard from Jonathan this morning. The biggest shift for us probably been our top volume challenges with search, AI overviews, etc. That is significantly impacting how we think about marketing. We heard all about that from him on how we're shifting our channels or just in general our content strategies to ensure we meet our buyers where they are. But I think for us in region, what it means that we also focus much more on the bottom of the funnel and the mid of the funnel. As marketers in region, that's where we are uniquely positioned to deeply understand our customers' needs, and and also how we would then can help basically convert the less volumes we have this year. We can also be much more prescriptive and personalized in our content now. So the same way AI is disrupting the big volume funnels, it's also enabling us to be much more personalized in our comms further down the funnel. So that is something that is really, really important to us. We have also emphasized and shifted much more towards the personal connections and the opportunities that comes with that, as you talk about, like the partnerships, really critical for us. Meeting all the wonderful people like you here today, that is something that we also, as marketers, want to make sure that we can help enable the connection rates and the opportunities that comes with that when we can connect our sellers with buyers in market. So that's really critical and a big change for us. I think also one of the big changes we did in region is that we've focused our marketing efforts in two really critical streams for us. And one stream that is the newest stream, I should say, is what we call our revenue marketing stream. And that's where we really work our existing data much more and deeper with more niche pools and more specific programs towards very targeted groups. And that is our always-on program that we work with, continuously on a daily basis. And then we have another stream that we call integrated marketing. The big shift in integrated marketing, it's multi-channel. It is more of a campaigns approach, but it is something where we look at the sort of from acquisition to close, so the whole way down to the revenue we are able to generate. And we've shifted that slightly from mostly looking at top funnel to now actually look at the whole way down to the deals we help create. So deal volumes are really critical for us in both streams, and we had it much more separated before. And I think this is something that actually, like awareness marketers, and we have a few here in our team, at first might have felt a little bit like, what, why, how? Are you really going to hold us accountable for a deal create number or a revenue target? Yes, let's do that. Yeah. But then the excitement you get when you can actually see how that adds incremental value to the business, I think that has been a real change and shift for us the past year.
Absolutely. That revenue team, our goal literally is deals created for the sales team, and it forces such a great alignment. And to your point, that little bit of uncomfortableness to begin with, but we now have, we set up a Slack channel for our team that whenever a deal is created off of the back of their campaign, we call it the deal dings, and it says, your recent event created this deal, and the team are like, I did that. And
got to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, and I never thought we would be doing deal reviews as a marketing team and looking at the pipeline that we're helping generate sales.
It's been a big shift for us.
Yeah. It's a huge shift, and we are balancing that with awareness plays, but we've had to make some decisions. You know, right now, podcasts was something that we were doing in market to tell more of our local stories to our audience. We decided to not do that going forward, but just because it's a little bit harder to tie that attribution. But then as we saw from Jonathan Hunt's session, there's some great brand and awareness channels that are really becoming our fastest demand driving channels at the moment, which is YouTube and video. So it really is following the data. And as we get more sophisticated in, tracking everything from, a sales rep being able to say, or for us to be able to hear on a gong call that a prospect say, hey, I saw you on the light rail, and I didn't realize you were a CRM too. Like the ability to track all of this is becoming so much more meaningful. And I think there's pride for a marketer now to have that attribution.
Yeah. I think one thing that really struck me today that I thought was amazing is I met with the sales team outside, and we were talking to a partner, and he said, our sales rep basically said, it's been really interesting to see the journey marketing is on right now, and how much valuable we as sales reps and sales individual sellers find this change that you're going through, because we can definitely see how it helps us in our day-to-day work. And we are not here to celebrate marketing wins. We're here to celebrate company wins or revenue wins or whatever goal it is that you have as an organization. But for us, it is that. And I think that has been really, it's something that I'm really proud of. And we have an amazing marketing team that is helping us with that.
Similar question, Susan. Anything in your marketing mix that you notice change, anything you're leaning into more?
Yeah. Two major changes for us over recent years. And the first one would be the role of our platforms and how we are, I don't want to say future-proofing ourselves, because the future's changing and growing and coming at us really rapidly.
This conversation's going to be obsolete tomorrow.
It will be. But look, a couple of years ago, I think we sort of intuitively went, hang on a minute, what are we doing? We're spending a lot of money on tech. Are we getting the value out of it that we need? Do we really understand where we sit in the customer journey? And again, understanding that we are more upper funnel, and that we succeed and our partners succeed when we are as wide as possible, make the funnel as wide as possible at the top. Bottom of the funnel will never be wider than the top of the funnel, so we have to do that job. And it felt like we were just maybe trying to do too much in all of our digital platforms. So we stepped back and we said, actually, what do people need from us? Where do we add most value? And we started, I don't know if I can say this at your guys, at sort of a tech conference, but we started unplugging tech we didn't need, to be honest. And it's something I encourage all businesses and all marketers to do, is go through and go, what are your customers actually using? We had a lot of functionality on our site that we just, once we looked at the numbers, we're like, that does not make sense. Like, let's unplug that. Let's make it a simpler, more elegant experience, and let's meet the customer needs better. But we also understood that what people really wanted from us is the content. So we started focusing much more on the content and how do we make our platforms really be the hub for, well, as we have now come to realize, how do we feed the rest of the travel content ecosystem with all of our really great storytelling and our video content, imagery, et cetera, that sits within all of our, whether it's our consumer, our B2B sites. And we think about how do we liberate our content, and here we are in increasingly in a generative AI and an LLM world. So we are in the process of sort of fleshing out that strategy, but we're feeling really proud of ourselves and really smart, aren't we, for having started to make that shift already. So it's been a really interesting journey. I think what started maybe as sort of like just kind of being a little efficient and slowing down some tracks of work that we weren't confident about actually became, oh shit, we've actually we've actually made a really smart decision to focus on what is going to make the most difference in our customer journey. And then the other piece is really thinking about our marketing and kind of going from one big global masterpiece that we try and hope that works really well across our 16 markets, our 7 brand markets, to a much more modular approach to storytelling. I'm kind of foreshadowing what will be coming out in a few months from our next big brand campaign. But we're taking a more multi-local approach to talent and to storytelling, all under the umbrella of one big global next chapter of Come and Say Good Day in our campaign with our brand mascot, Ruby. But I guess we're trying to think about how do we build campaigns a little more with Lego pieces versus chipping something in, out of marble that is, one static piece. How do we kind of build this thing with lots of different pieces that makes it really interesting and compelling? And I guess how do we go from, how do we become, how do we tell great brand stories at scale, but still being locally relevant? And that's really important. The sweet spot for us is always kind of in that Venn diagram, that middle section of where we're true to brand Australia, and we really have to be. I think sometimes you can take other brands and you can drop them into other markets and they can reflect the country they're in. But we're representing a nation, a country, and a people, so it's got to be distinctly Australian, but at the same time, it's got to be locally relevant to connect. So we're always challenging ourselves and thinking more and more around how do we bring those two things together and find that sweet spot overlap.
And is a part of that the ability to go at a good speed? Because what I'm seeing even within my own team is annual planning is not going to be annual planning anymore. We have to break it down even by quarter because things are changing fast and we want to give ourselves that adaptability. And I think the chapters thing sounds to me like a little bit of that adaptability piece where you can pivot into and lean and have a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, we try to, and even as an organization, not just as a marketing team, but as an organization, we plan annually, we review quarterly. If something isn't happening, we free up that money to go into a contestable pot. We reallocate it to other opportunities based on business cases. So I think you need some degree of certainty and a framework that you're working through in order to get traction and move forward. But I think increasingly we also need to build a degree of flexibility and to be opportunistic, certainly.
I think one of the challenges with that is also understanding like what really all markets are different, yes, but and knowing what it is in your content that you need to change to make it relevant. It's really critical because it's easy, and with the same type of challenges, a global brand
trying to resonate
across the whole world, from Japan to Colombia to Sweden, maybe even.
But it's hard, though, right? Because who's got money to do individual campaigns or individual content all the time?
You have to build on and I think that's one of the things we talked about before, is like having that strong foundation is absolutely critical. And having now, with the help of the modern technology, we can flex and adapt pretty fast with the technology we have at hand.
And also in our world, the primacy of social channels in our category as well. I mean, so much of travel inspiration, travel planning, social search, social commerce, it's becoming more and more, the beating heart of sort of travel planning and inspiration. And it is possible for us to be a little bit more local, a little bit more relevant, and it's funny things. I was back in Japan and Korea earlier in the year doing a planning session with them and looking at some of the social content, and they're like, some of this stuff is too polished and too perfect. Like, show us stuff that I can get a sense that that's how people can actually travel like that it's attainable, So it's interesting.
No, definitely, and you're getting into the next section, which I think is helpful, which is the customer. I do want to open up to audience questions, so we do have that option today. So in a couple of minutes, we'll see if we've got some questions on the floor, but I might end with one question for you, Susie, and one for you, Susan. Susie, starting with yourself, we just started to talk a lot about how the buyer is evolving. Would love to hear from you how you're seeing our buyer evolve and what's resonating.
I'd like to flip that question around a little bit, because I think while buyers' behaviors are constantly evolving, we've known now for years that buyers are very equipped with insights before they actually are ready for a purchase. I think it is turning around now. I think our sellers are becoming more and more equipped with insights. So I think we're more on equal terms compared to how it was before, because we have so much data at hand that we can leverage.
Absolutely.
As marketers, we can do very specific specialized niche target groups, and we can adapt and change the message specifically to the ones we are targeting. As sales have information at hand before they even go into a conversation, knowing more, for example, about an organization than you did 5 years ago, and you can have that and dynamically change your conversation and your tone. We know that we have, our services teams can be proactive and solve for problems even before our customers know potentially that they have a problem. Yes. So I think that question is relevant, but I think it is more on equal terms now than it was before, because we have all this data and we have it all in one unified contact record. Yeah. So what I do think is changing is like the relationships. And that's where I see we need to be really good at building these relationships, maintaining these relationships, and having conversations really with relevance. Yeah. So I think that is exciting, both from a buyer's and the seller's perspective, and I think that's a huge change right now that we're going through.
Although, can I also just say, in a sort of data-rich, tech-heavy, AI-led world, what you're talking about is human relationships.
So much.
But I think more so. More
is that going to enable that?
I love that. It's the piece we don't talk about enough with AI, is like, what does that leave? And I think it's that enriched human experience. It's why I think events and experiential brand is coming back in such a big way, because yes, it gets cut through, but it truly wins hearts and minds of your audience when they feel that they can connect for a brand. Because we've all heard that people trust people more than brands. Yeah. And I think there's something that we want to break. I think we want to embrace that. And I think that's why working with creators, even in the B2B space, like seeing a lot of success working with influencers, creators. Yeah. But we also want to fix that trust piece with brands.
Isn't it funny you said even in the B2B space, by the way, because I love this whole conversation about B2B marketing, because ultimately it's just marketing, because you're talking
human to
people.
Human.
It's human to human. Like, turns out business people, when they're wearing their business, or people when they're wearing their business hat, also like to be engaged and entertained. Yeah, exactly.
100%. Our team last year did a really fun activation, again, trying to test those boundaries of what it means to be B2B. Many of our audience will know Messina, the gelato company. We teamed up with them. They did a great HubSpot flavor. It was something duck fat, only something Messina would be brave enough to do, and it was absolutely delicious. And our audience were just delighted. Like, yes, B2B is software, but bring us the ice cream, bring us the gelato. Absolutely. I said time for one more question, but it is going fast, so I want to make sure if we've got anything from the audience today. Otherwise, I can absolutely keep going. Okay, we had hands straight up over here. Thank you. Mike is coming round to you now.
Thank you. That was very insightful. My question is around what you mentioned about brand investment and awareness being a long-term sort of play. So I believe a lot of businesses are obviously wanting to invest in long-term, but how do we bring the value to the now, whether it's metrics or how do we measure brand awareness today? And what sort of campaigns and, human to human, right? So when we talk about businesses, how do we humanize the kind of awareness that we are building with potential customers?
Yeah,
thank you.
Do you want to take that one?
I can take that one. Yes, so your question, how do we ensure we add the value now? We do multi-channel playbooks. So, and I think in that we might have a brand element that you can't directly you can't directly connect to revenue. But as part of that multi-channel, we have pieces of content that are trackable assets. With those trackable assets, we are able to correlate and track the whole way down to a deal created. So we look at the holistic impact of the campaign, but we have elements within the campaign that allow us to track down to revenue. That helps here and now, but we know that the overall piece or the theme or the maybe out of home content, we will not be able to put a tracking code on. We can sometimes, but if we don't, we know by combining it, it helps. So I wholeheartedly believe you need to connect more multi-channel motions in order to be able to correlate it to revenue in the bottom line. So that's how I think of it. And then you can constantly optimize throughout the journey. So you'll have more specific conversion points that you will look at further down the funnel, but you know it helps drive impact. And then, of course, we do brand sentiment, service, etc. But we know it's the continuity and the constant work that helps us grow long term.
Yeah, and I'd say there's no doubt that that brand investment is meant to be over time. You know, again, we talked earlier about brand being future demand, you know, so you're setting your company up for success in the long term. But we also know research shows that brand activity also has an impact on your short-term performance marketing or conversion marketing as well. You've got to, and I don't know what your investment levels or your time horizon is or your category, but I think you can start to collect your data and you can start to correlate when you run brand marketing over X period of time. You can, and when you see a shift in your sentiment, in your awareness, your consideration, your salience, etc., you ought to start to be able to correlate that over time to when, over your purchase cycle, to when people are more likely to be buying. So I think you just have to build out a bit of a framework, and it doesn't mean that you have to have a super expensive econometric model. I think you can probably do a simplified version to help you get some wins on the board within your business. But yeah, it's definitely looking at brand investment as creating future demand. And by the way, there's so much literature out about this now. If you look at the work again from James Herman from New Zealand, if you look at, I mean, Mark Ritson talks a lot about this, Les Binet, Peter Field,
HubSpot blog.
There you go. Yeah. Grace Kite is a good one. Tom Roach. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there talking about this. It's a great question.
Got time for another one, yes.
Hey Susan, how you going? Have you thought of the scenario of what would have happened if you had this, your current pipeline capability and your current pipeline capability and Lara Bingle absolutely blowing up television sets across the globe?
No, I haven't thought about that. That campaign, the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, look, you got people talking about Australia at the time, didn't it?
What's the saying? It's bad press of a...
Yeah, no such thing as bad PR, is that right? I don't know. I wasn't around at the time.
Do we have one more question? We've definitely got time for it. Yes, at the back.
You mentioned about when you guys were looking at the content and kind of what was working and what wasn't, did you use any particular softwares, or what was the process to identify what people wanted from Tourism Australia?
Honestly, it was just looking at our analytics. It was literally going what part of our site are people going to? What content are they looking for? How many people are using our maps? How many people are using trip planners? How many people are engaging with our chatbot? You know, and that was, I mean, it's pretty simplistic, really, but it gave us the insight into understanding actually what they were looking for from us.
We have an interesting model that we've used historically also for identifying content plans and content strategies. We've done something we call search insights reports, but basically online behavior reports. We look at other things than search now, but it's basically a lot of that infrastructure, identifying what are people asking online. Not only how are they consuming our content, but how can we ensure that we answer those questions that are top of people's mind right now with our content that we have, you know, that we put together. That has been really that's an SEO game changer. Because really, instead of thinking about your own perspective and looking at, you know, these are the products we're going to release. Here's what we believe, you know, we should be talking about. You create it from your buyers or your audience perspective, and you build up those audiences based on what they're actually looking for and what conversations they're having online. It's a game changer, and it puts it in, like, it puts your whole content strategy into a different perspective.
It's such a great point. It's such a great point, actually, and it's also not a set and forget thing, because the world is changing, consumer behavior is changing, and one of the things we've looked at recently is what our AI overview sort of search results are as well. I mean, I must admit, I was sort of jumping to a lot of our content pages nobody are going to. They don't need that sort of stuff. When maybe we need a slim site, maybe we need all these things. Then the team was started doing analysis around what's happening in search behavior and AI overview search behavior, et cetera. And we're like, actually, no, a lot of the long tail of answers coming through generative AI search was actually showing that breadth of our content was much more valuable than we had realized just based on our own site analytics alone. So,
And also, like, again, like gong calls or listening into conversations that, like, what are your customers actually asking your sales reps? Like, what are the things that, like, what are their problems, or what are the conversations that your CS team is having with your customers? Are there things there that we can help educate more around, or content that we should push? Do folks want to see more use cases for AI as an example, or do they want to hear about the future in 5 years? Maybe not. I think more use cases. But those are the kind of that's our approach to it, and I think it's been super helpful for content.
All right,
we had more questions, but we don't have time.
We are spot on time. I was told we are going to get the flashing signal if we don't, but we will just be down here if you want to come and say hello, and I'm sure we can take another question or two. But thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to our wonderful speakers.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.